Welcome to Zone Coverage. We're here at Stewart's TV and Appliance for our weekly look at everything having to do with the Cleveland Browns. I'm Scott Petrak, Browns beat writer for the Chronicle Telegram, Medina Gazette, and BrownZone.com, and this is Jim Ingraham, our sports columnist. Well, Jim, there's a lot to discuss this week, including a 17-14 loss to the New York Jets. The Browns moved the ball up and down the field, but they made costly turnovers, missed a couple field goals, their defense gave up one long drive. To me, it felt like a game that a bad team finds a way to lose. Do you think the Browns are kicking themselves for giving away a chance to get their first win?
Well, if they aren't, they should be, because that was, the end of a three-game segment where we thought they had a chance to win all three, or at least 2 out of 3, and they lost all three. Right. And that definitely was a game they could have won. The 3 red zone turnovers obviously were killers, and they just couldn't get stops when they needed it defensively. And, all the usual problems they've had to this point seemed to surface in this one game, and it really absolutely was a winnable game, but unfortunately it was also a losable game.
Yeah, as bad as the loss was, to me the biggest takeaway was Hugh Jackson's decision to bench Deshaun Kaiser as rookie quarterback at halftime. The Browns only trailed 3-0. Deshaun had some success moving the ball. Obviously he made the big turnovers. Were you okay with that decision?
I was okay with it. I think what's happening now, we seem to be entering into a new phase of the season where I think Jackson's starting to feel a little bit pressure about the mounting losses and how it looks on his record, and all of the loyalty that he seemed to have towards Kaiser now is he's coaching to win, it seems to me, rather than coaching for the future. And the front office is making decisions based on the future. So this is another thing that kind of bears watching now, because you've got kind of 2 disparate philosophies going on at once.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think Hugh Jackson is in such a difficult spot because not only does he know he's 1-20, he's got 52 other guys to worry about, and they're doing all they can to win. Blood, sweat, and tears to win every week, and yet your quarterback isn't doing enough to help you win games. So I get that he's caught between tough spots. I just would have liked to see him stick with Deshaun Kaiser, see if he could play his own way through that and get a win, because they were only down by a field goal. He had moved the ball a little bit. So what do you do going forward? It sure sounds like Hugh Jackson's going to go with Kevin Hogan for at least this week against Houston, maybe longer. Are you okay with that? And then do you think it gives Deshaun Kaiser a chance to kind of catch his breath, see it from a different vantage point, and maybe that'll help him if he plays in the second half of the season?
I'm sure that's what they're hoping happens, and maybe it will happen. But the fact that you've switched to the guy that was the 4th-string quarterback at the start of this whole thing is now the starter. Now you've kind of opened a can of worms here, and maybe you're going almost game to game, or even half to half, or possession to possession. When nobody knows how this thing's going to go. I would say if Hogan starts playing better than Kaiser, and Jackson hasn't to decide who to play, it's going to have to be Hogan, because he's trying to win games now. I don't think he's worried so much about the future as he was at the start of the year.
No, you're right, but it puts your organization in a tough spot, because you have to find out if Deshaun Kaiser can play, and 4.5 games isn't long enough to tell. It just isn't. And I hope we don't lump in Deshaun Kaiser with guys like Johnny Manziel and Colt McCoy and Brandon Weeden, guys who've played early in their careers and struggled and then kind of disappear. I think Kaiser has more attributes than the rest of those guys, and I don't think 4.5 weeks is long enough or fair enough to tell how good he can be, especially knowing that he didn't play much at Notre Dame, and he was a young kid. He's 21 years old. So I hope they go back to him at some point for his good, but it sure sounds like Hugh's going to go with Kevin Hogan. Now, one bright spot from the game was the debut of Myles Garrett, the number 1 pick in the draft. Only played 19 snaps, but got a lot of bang for your buck with 2 sacks. How impressed were you?
I was very impressed. I watched the very first play he was on. I like through binoculars. I just focused on him, and he was like lightning quick.
Yeah.
He was in the backfield almost instantly. They couldn't even react to his quickness. But of course, he's his first game, and he kind of ran out of gas, and the ankle, I guess, started to get a little sore. But you can see what's there when he's healthy, and he will be a big changer of the game, I think, when he's healthy. And they absolutely need that, because they've got to put some pressure on the quarterback with the faulty defensive coverage they have in the backfield out there. So it was a very intriguing debut, and you'd like to see more, but you're going to have to probably take a slow progression with him.
Right, you're exactly right. And I think he'll play more as the year goes on, but he's going to have to deal with the ankle, and there's going to be pain, and maybe it hurts more one week than the next, and he has to play fewer snaps one week to the next. However, it was great to see him, and Joe Thomas brought up an interesting point Monday when we talked to him. that he thinks if you had Myles Garrett the first 4 games, maybe the record's different. Maybe they beat Pittsburgh because there's only a 21-18 loss. Maybe he makes a play or two that changes the game. You get a strip sack. So maybe having Myles Garrett back, and now they get outside linebacker Jamie Collins back this week against Houston, maybe you'll start to see that defense live up to the expectations that they set for themselves in the preseason. Now, Jim, Josh Gordon, we talk about the receiving core a lot. Josh Gordon obviously hasn't been here, hasn't been with the Browns for a couple of years as he's been on suspension. Posted a video Tuesday morning on Uninterrupted, the website, and he talked about his drug history and how he used cocaine and Xanax and marijuana and alcohol. He talked about how the first couple times he went to rehab, he wasn't committed to it, and one of them was a joke. Now he says he's changed. He's done a 3-month rehab stay. First of all, do you believe him, and do you trust that he's changed? And second of all, would you give him another shot if you're the Cleveland Browns?
This is a tough one. I mean, he's obviously plays a position where they have a crying need for somebody that can actually catch the ball. But how many chances can one organization give a guy with his history? I think it would be difficult for them to do that just because you really don't know until you start playing him again and getting, with the team if he's going to stay the way you want him to stay or if he's going to fall off the wagon and
Sure.
There you go again. So it's a tough call. I'd be inclined to not to bring him back because if it happens again, then you've set yourself back and you've given you've given snaps to other players, could have given snaps to other players, and there's just so much uncertainty there, and so much uncertainty with the team itself that I don't think he's probably better off with a more stable organization and a more stable environment than what's going on with the Browns right now.
Sure. He sucked me in many times when he was ready to come back, and I said, give him another chance, give him another chance. However, I just think he's used up all his chances with Cleveland. I really do. I don't trust him to come back and stay eligible and keep playing. So if I'm the Browns, I know how tempting it would be, but I think you try to trade him and get as much back as you can. Get a high draft pick or compensatory draft pick that could go from 3rd to 2nd round, something like that. At least you can recover something and kind of start fresh. But it's interesting because the guy showed so much talent when he played. All right, lastly, let's look at this week's game, Jim. The Browns are going to Houston. The Texans are coming off a loss Sunday night, and in it they lost J.J. Watt, their superstar defensive lineman. They lost another outside linebacker, Whitney Merciless, but they have Deshaun Watson, the quarterback that the Browns passed on, and they traded the pick to Houston. So I guess how heartbreaking is it they don't have Deshaun Watson, and then do you see any chance the Browns can win?
Well, of course they would play this team in this week, the week after they benched the quarterback they chose over Deshaun Watson. So, the table's set here for a potentially really embarrassing game for the Browns if Watson really goes off. I think it's going to be an interesting one because, these two kids came in together. It's fair to compare the progress of both of them. And I know, the Texans, they have a little better talent base than the Browns do. So that enters into evaluating the quarterback. But, Kaiser could be on the bench and Watson's starting. And, Watson's already had one really good game, and we'll see what happens this week.
Yeah, it's just another example of the Browns not prioritizing the quarterback position. And we saw it in 2016 when they traded down and didn't take Carson Wentz. And then we saw it this year when they traded down from number 12 and let Houston take Deshaun Watson. And you just hope those aren't franchise-altering decisions. I think the Browns could have a chance to win this game, but I can't pick them again, and I got to go Houston 23, Cleveland 17, something like that. Thank you for tuning in. We're here at Stewart's TV and Appliance, and we'll see you again next week.